At this year's Synod Assembly, we have a very important discernment process that occurs once every 6 years, the election of a bishop.
Since this process occurs so infrequently, we thought it would help to go over the process and what the expectations are if you're planning to attend the assembly as a voting member.
The election process is what is known as an ecclesiastical ballot.
Unlike the nomination and campaigning process that's going on now for President of the United States, there's no campaigning ahead of time by individuals.
The process is intended to be a discernment in which the Holy Spirit is present and we are guided as an assembly to God's chosen person for this very important role.
Even though there's no individual campaigning ahead of time, we encourage conferences, congregations, and individuals to openly discuss and prayerfully discern what they feel are the attributes and skills they see as being critical for our bishop prior to the assembly.
Conference deans will be setting up meetings in the next few weeks to help prepare for the election. Whether you're a rostered leader or a layperson, your participation in your conference and cluster meetings is critical.
The election process at the assembly is very detailed. We will have the Reverend Chris Berger, the secretary of the ELCA, presiding over the election to make sure that all is done according to our synod's constitution. Pastor Berger will make sure that we all understand the details of the election and that any questions you might have are addressed ahead of time to ensure a truly transparent, well-conducted, and fair discernment process.
So how will the process work? We're going to give you a quick overview.
The first ballot is an open ballot. Any ordained pastor in the ELCA can be nominated.
You'll be asked to write in your nomination on the ballot. You'll need to make sure that you have the candidate's name spelled correctly. If the candidate is from outside our synod, it would be very helpful if you could provide contact details, especially a cell phone number, so that we can quickly reach that person prior to the second ballot. This first ballot will take place on Thursday afternoon.
Typically, this ballot has many names on it. For someone to be elected on the first ballot, they need to receive 3/4 of the legal votes cast. If no one is elected, the first ballot will be considered a nominating ballot.
If you have been nominated and wish to remove your name from the ballot, you must do so by 6:30 that evening. Otherwise, your name will appear on the second ballot.
Once the ballot has been updated with the removal of names from those wishing not to be considered, we'll vote again. This vote will occur on Thursday evening. Again, 3/4 of the votes cast on the second ballot would be necessary for election.
The third ballot will be limited to the 7 people who received the most votes on the second ballot.
Prior to the third ballot, we will hold a series of meetings with the clusters where there will be questions and answers for the candidates.
Before the assembly, you will have met with your conference, and maybe even with your cluster, where you will have developed the questions that you'll ask the candidates. That's why it's so important that you participate in your pre-assembly meetings.
These question and answer sessions will take place on Friday afternoon. They will be very closely timed and monitored to ensure that each candidate is treated equally and fairly.
Following these sessions, we will vote on the 7 candidates. On this ballot, a candidate would need 2/3 of the votes cast to be elected.
The fourth ballot is limited to the 3 people who received the most votes on the previous ballot. At this point, to be elected, a candidate needs to receive 60% of the votes.
Before we vote on the top 3 candidates, they will each address the assembly. Again, we'll be closely timing and monitoring these presentations. We want to ensure an equal and fair election process. All of this will take place on Friday evening.
If none of the candidates receive 60% of the votes, we will move onto a ballot that only contains the top 2 candidates from the previous ballot.
There will be question and answer sessions with the candidates before the assembly votes. These sessions will be moderated by Pastor Berger to make sure questions are fair, applicable, and appropriate. These votes will happen on Saturday morning, and a candidate would need a simple majority of the votes cast to be elected.
As you can see, the process is very detailed and it's proved to work well in our synod in previous elections.
So, what do we need from you?
First and foremost, we need your prayers for our assembly and for this overall process that the Holy Spirit guides and directs us.
second is your participation in the process. Understanding how it works ahead of time and then being part of your conference pre-assembly meetings to make sure your voice is heard.
If you have any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch with our Synod Vice President, John Auger.
We thank you in advance for your prayers and support.